Hello and welcome to Everything's Fine, probably your weekly antidote to bad news. Been another fascinating week in British politics where Nigel Farage has somehow managed to engineer a by-election that was supposed to be a triumphant demonstration of public support, but instead he's ended up in a straightforward fight with Count Binface and still looks like the least politically credible candidate. The really awkward bit for Nigel is that if you're trying to convince the country you're a serious statesman, being relentlessly mocked by a man whose manifesto includes putting croissants back in the Eurovision Song Contest probably isn't ideal. Though to be fair, if anyone should know a thing or two about recycling, it's Count Binface, and he's currently trying to recycle Nigel's political career. Now, we're a bit light on hosts this week. No Gemma this week, no Stu either. So if this was a regular news story type week, that would be an issue. But as luck would have it, I'm joined in the Everything's Fine Probably shed by one of the most entertaining humans I've ever been stuck in a shed with. It's comedian, author, broadcaster, adventurer, and a man who voluntarily crossed the English Channel. It's comedian, author, broadcaster, adventurer, and a man who voluntarily crossed the English Channel in a bathtub because apparently normal hobbies weren't available. It's Tim FitzHigham. Tim, welcome to Everything's Fine Probably.
Hello, thanks for having me in this shed.
Thank you.
It's very exciting, this, isn't it?
Are you generally excited by sheds?
Well, I've never been in your shed before, and I've never been in a shed like this. This is brilliant. It's got all kinds of kind of amazing retro toys and gadgets and all sorts. It's brilliant, and more Daleks I think than I've ever seen in one place.
Yes,
ever.
I think there's just shy of 100 Daleks.
100 Daleks. There you go.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
amazing.
Ridiculous.
It's amazing. Amazing.
More Daleks than any grown man should be.
Yeah.
Let's be perfectly honest.
Well, I'm very impressed. I don't even know what that one's called, but I remember he's from Doctor Who as well.
Oh, the Cyberman.
The Cyberman, that's
Yes,
it. Well done.
Quite a few of them in here too.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Goodness me, it must have taken ages getting this together.
Yes, it's an endeavour of a lot of years. I think some of the oldest stuff I've had in here I've had since I was about 5.
Oh my.
So yeah, it's been a while.
Wow. Anyway, thank you for having me on.
No, thank you for
Very
having me on.
Very kind.
So, Tim, let's find out a bit about you.
Right.
I mean, you are a man, for the uninitiated, you are a man who holds how many world records?
Some world maritime records, yeah.
Some world maritime
Yes.
records.
It's 3.
3.
Yeah.
Excellent. And what are they?
Well, they're all ridiculous. So the one of them is the longest distance travelled in a boat entirely made out of paper. And that was a maritime record set in 1619 when a man went 40 miles down the River Thames in a paper boat. And I set out to break that record to raise some money for a charity called Comic Relief. And I got my paper boat and I started gluing it together. You know how when you were little and you blew up a balloon and then you cover the balloon in paper and then you burst the balloon and you've still got a papier-mâché balloon?
Yep.
That is basically what I did, but on a much bigger scale with a kind of kayak-shaped balloon to create the paper boat to get it down the river.
This may seem a strange question. There's probably better questions, but where do you get a kayak-shaped balloon from?
Well, brilliantly, I managed to find a boat maker who was not afraid to have a crack at this. And it is quite weird, isn't it? Because you have these brilliant, or I think I have these brilliant ideas, and then I go, I'm going to do this. This is amazing. Then you've got to get people to believe in the ideas. You've got to get people to buy into it. And then in this case, you had to get a boat maker who was quite prepared to put his boat making kind of professional reputation on the line to make a paper boat. And so I did manage to find such an individual called Malcolm, and he brilliantly had this kayak shaped thing that he didn't mind me using to try and papier-mâché something, which was brilliant of him. And actually it was quite good because he had this thing in a shed that he bought as a boat maker. It was a kayak mold, and it actually came from World War II. And so he said, well, I'm never going to use this again because obviously kayak manufacturing has moved on and they've got way quicker and way slicker and way better. But this is a good, solid World War II kayak shaped, mold. Why don't you have a go at that? How badly wrong can it possibly go? And so that was the attitude that I needed, really. That's exactly what I wanted. And that's what I cracked on with my paper boat.
And it went how far down the Thames?
So the record was 40 miles down the Thames, and I made it 160 miles. Yeah,
fantastic. That feels like a record. It's going to be a while till anybody.
Yeah, well,
takes on.
It's a tricky one because the further you go, the more the boat is disintegrating. So that's the kind of that's the test, really, isn't it? That's the challenge. So you're trying to desperately hope the boat will hold together. And the problem that we didn't work out is that in between the layers of paper, when you're putting the papier mâché together, there's obviously tiny weeny air pockets. But as you're kayaking along, your body heat heats up the air in the air pockets. And so then it starts delaminating. So the further you go, the more the boat is just delaminating away. So the more it's basically disintegrating, and the further you go along the river. And so by the time I got to 160, it really was, it really was sinking. So
Yeah.
there's no two ways about that. In fact, I got a call from the boatmaker on the last day I was doing this. I was in London. I was going to go on to Tower Bridge, and he there was quite a lot of TV cameras by that stage following the progress. And he said, how's it looking in the water? Because it was his boat making company that had, had his name on it, and it was, and I said, oh, it's quite low in the water. It's a bit low in the water. And then he watched the news broadcast that evening, and he phoned me up and he went, "That's not low in the water. That's blinking sinking." And so it was just so low because I didn't know the difference. I was like, well, it feels a bit low in the water, but no, apparently it was definitely sinking. Yeah.
Still, 160 miles, not to be sniffed at.
No, it was good.
Boat.
Yeah, yeah.
One of your maritime records.
Yes.
What else have you got for us?
Well, then the bathtub is the next one, and that sort of that hit two, really. So it's the only crossing of the English Channel in a bathtub, but it's also the slowest successful rowing crossing of the English Channel. I mean, it's bound to be because it's a third of a ton roll top Victorian copper bath,
Yeah.
and so it's you couldn't row that quickly. Normally, when you're trying to row the channel, you're trying to do it as quickly as possible because of the tides and the currents, and it's really nasty little stretch of water that. But when you're in the bathtub, you can't row it very fast. So you're just trying to get across. And the longer it takes you to row the channel, the less likely you are to actually make it because of the way that the tides and the current work. So if you're going to row the channel, ideally you'd be doing it in 3 or 4 hours. Me in the bathtub took over 9 hours. So I was all but over the border where you're not going to make it, really, because the way that the current works, it just takes you, it's constantly trying to take you away from the coastline, and you're constantly trying to get back into the coastline, because obviously the current works essentially like two sides of a motorway, and the motorway is the sea in between it, and so the sea wants to take you south, and then it wants to take you further north, and you're trying to go east west. And so I don't know if I can explain that on the podcast, but
Yeah, I get the idea. And you had some challenges with the French Coast
yeah,
Guard, of course.
yeah. I mean, the French own half of the English Channel.
Yeah.
That is a key element of the whole thing. And they did put a clause in the Shipping Act of France to make bathtub rowing illegal in French water, which, in the context of my plan, is a bit of a blow, really.
That would absolutely make it challenging.
Yeah.
I think my favourite story that you tell on that is when you got stuck in the storm, you got rescued in your boat, your bath was still bobbing around, and they wanted to sink it.
Yeah, they definitely did. Yeah. So I mean, I had to get the bath put on the shipping register so it wasn't then a bath in legal sense. It wasn't a bathtub. It was a registered British ship, and so I managed to get the bathtub on the shipping register. I mean, there's a lot of negotiating between me and the ministry to try and get it on the shipping register, but we succeeded in getting it on. So then it's a bath. Then it's a registered British ship. You can row it wherever you want. So that's how I got round the French clause in the Shipping Act legally. Unfortunately, when I first tried it, I did get caught in a force 7 storm, and I did unfortunately get quite badly injured. I was sort of on my own for 40 minutes, just bobbing away in this storm, and basically sinking. Let's not make any bones about it. And then yes, the French came on that radio, and they said their solution to the. I mean, they were calling me a problem by this stage, which is. I mean, I said
You've probably been called worse.
Surprise. Was to put explosives on the bath and to blow it out of the water, which of course is illegal because you can't sink a British ship. It's against the law.
Yes, you did. I think tell them it would be an act of war.
I did say that. Yeah, I did say that. So, yeah.
So, I mean, you seem to have made a bit of a career of saying yes to ideas that most people will probably very politely decline. Has that always been a bit of a trade of yours?
Yes, I think it has.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, not to think, yes, I think saying yes is a thing. Yes, I've said yes a lot. I think there's something about it, isn't there? If you're a person who says yes to things,
Mm.
then you get really fun experiences out of it, and you never know where these things are going to lead. And I really like that as an idea. Where's this one going to go? Where is this going to pan out? And you may not have any idea where it's going to end up.
No.
There's a great outcome of the bath trip, really, I never saw coming. Years after I did the bath, I got a phone call from my carer saying, Tim, because I got to write a book about the bath. That was another thing I never thought I'd get to do.
Mm.
And then I got a phone call from the carer saying, Tim, Clint Eastwood has read your book and he would like you to be in a film he's making with Matthew Damon. And I obviously said to the agent, tell him unless it's made produced by Spielberg, I'm not doing it. And the agent said, well, Tim, it is produced by Spielberg. Please stop mucking about. And this is quite serious. And so that was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
I got to work with Clint Eastwood, who, was a massive hero of mine when I was a tiny person. And I think in many ways still is. He's a phenomenal filmmaker, has an amazing work ethic and is a really nice man and so many good things about it. So I never would have got to work with him. And I never knew that was going to happen coming out of the bath. That wasn't the reason I did the bath. Didn't say yes to the bath to somehow end up working with Clint Eastwood. It was just a really surprising, brilliant outcome of doing something and saying yes to something and being positive that then led to something else that then led to something else that then led to me ending up working for with him, which was great.
Yeah. And when people describe you, you look online, you're described as an adventurer, as a
Yes.
historian, a comedian.
Yeah.
I mean, which feels closest to who you are?
I think that's probably, in a nutshell, the issue, isn't it? Because I think they're all parts of me, really, and I think that's what's interesting, isn't it? So there wasn't anybody doing the kind of comedy that I was doing when I was doing more, when I was starting out doing comedy. There wasn't anyone going, I'm going to do an adventure, a bit like Ranulph Fiennes, let's say, but then I'm going to do stand up about it. And there wasn't that. That there was only me doing that, and I didn't set out to do that. I just couldn't really make other things work. So I was sort of, and then how do you find adventures? Well, for me, the natural impulse is to go, let's look at kind of history. Is there something fun there that people have done? So the paper boat's a classic example of that. The bath's slightly different because that came out of my own head, but the paper boat's a really old 400-year-old record. Found it in a history book and went, brilliant, let's do that. Then you turn that into a stand-up show. It's a heck of an adventure taking a kayak down a river, and especially when it's made out of paper, you've got to manage a lot. The bathtub's the same, and other stuff that I've done, they've always been adventure based. But then to go and make stand-up out of it, that's unusual. And to me, it didn't feel like any of those were things that weren't joined up.
Mm.
That's, I think, what's interesting. I think, but nobody else is doing it. So that's weird. You're quite right. So everyone else defines it as adventurer or historian or stand-up or writer or whatever those boxes are.
Whereas to you, all the same thing.
To me, they're all very joined up and they're all linked. I accept that I might be the only person that sees it that way.
Not at all. And The Gambler was kind of about this historical.
Yeah, that's right.
Back.
Yeah, so The Gambler, it's the BBC Radio 4 series. You can still get it on all the podcast places that people get podcasts and radio, BBC Sounds or whatever it is. Mm. And it was a brilliant couple of series because, again, it was finding an adventure for me in a history book, in this case, a historic gamble or a historic wager or a bet, and then seeing if I could win it now in the current day with all of the health and safety restrictions that we now have, which were definitely not there when the original gamblers put those bets together. And I found that really exciting. And again, it plays, it's the exact same triangle, isn't it, that we just talked about, which is find a historical adventure that makes you laugh, try and take it on now as an adventure, and then end up making a stand-up show about it, either for radio or, in this case, or live. So again, it was that lovely circle of doing all sorts of mad things, just because they were bets in the past, and I want to try and win them now.
Yeah. So where do you think that curiosity of yours comes from?
That's the thing, I think, that is the word. I think I am always curious. I think I'm really curious about all sorts of things. And I think I've always been curious. I don't know where that comes from, but and maybe it's a thing we all are, but I really love finding out about stuff. I think that if there's anything that really gets me out of bed, it's finding out something new. I really like that. that's really exciting.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think curiosity can be learned? Do you think it's just something we're born with?
I have no idea.
No.
I don't know. All I can say is what I know.
Mm.
I love finding out new stuff. I love learning about stuff. I love thinking about stuff, and I love working out if something can be done in a slightly different way. It might be a better way, it might be a worse way, but can it be done slightly differently? So I've always been intrigued by that. I've always tried things that maybe sometimes have been absolutely disastrous, but they may have led to something that's actually quite fun.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything like that about when you think, I wish I wasn't curious about this?
Oh, there've been some definite close ones where I've kind of gone, well, that's pretty hairy.
Mm.
I think there was one morning where I was in Maribel, which is in France-Swiss border, and I was doing a comedy festival there, and I got woken up by one of the nice people that was running the festival, and he said, oh, I think it's fixed, Tim. I think we've got it there. And I went, okay, brilliant. I went, okay, I'll just get some trousers. Okay, and I followed him down the corridor, down another corridor. Then we got in a ski lift, and I went, probably need a helmet for this. And he went, there you go, helmet. And we go up in ski lift, and we get to the top of what I now know to be the Olympic slalom run from the the Winter Olympics.
Right.
And this is a black run. It's a very serious ski slope, and they'd taken a lot of the gates off because it was the end of the season. And I got to the top of this, and I could see Maribel at the bottom, and there were sort of people the size of ants just, moving around. And I was thinking, oh my word. And then he said, here it is. And he had got this giant inflatable sandcastle at the top of this ski slope. And it all came back, flooding back. And the day before, I had contracted a bet with the mayor of Maribel, who was in this. He'd come to the gig, and I'd said I could take that. I could take that sandcastle down the Black Run. And he had very kindly, the mayor had got out of bed the next morning and gone, right, must organise this bet. He took me at my word, and he set the whole thing up. He was waiting down at the bottom in Maribel. He was one of the ants that I could see. And I got in the inflatable sandcastle, and it goes. It went down the Olympic slalom run, and I was inside it. And at the start there was sort of skiers there trying to keep me on the slope, but I just went so fast, I just lost them. And I remember looking back and seeing one of my mates on skis just kind of going, what am I supposed to like? What am I meant to do now? As I shot off down this flipping ski slope. And the black run shelves at one point. It absolutely shelves and then goes down again. And I flew off the black run like a little ramp or something in this sandcastle. And then I slammed back down into the mountain, and I sort of blacked out because I hit my head. And I was constantly just thinking, this is a terrible idea. So I was swirling around this thing and zooming across. And the only way I could keep it anyway clear of the ironwork for the ski lift was just by sort of jabbing an elbow in or a heel or some sort of bit of my body just to try and somehow steer this chaotic, slippy, mad, inflatable thing down the slope. And anyway, I got to the bottom and I came round because I had been unconscious for the last bit. And I sort of stood up, and the mayor congratulated me, champagne corks went off, and I'd sort of somehow won a bet. But I remember thinking, I mean, that was a very silly idea that was definitely a close one, that.
Yeah. I remember you telling me a good few years ago, because I was going out to Riyadh to do some work. And you told me about, off the back of the bath, you'd become an honorary Marine, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So a Commodore, yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
And this led to you having to free climb.
That was a lovely experience. So you're right. You've got to the right point. So basically, on the back of various things I'd done, they made a lovely BBC TV series, which was called Superhuman Challenge. And you can still, I think, get bits of it online. But it was a really nice series where I got to fly all around the world. I got to meet amazing world record holders. And the kind of idea of the show was that I would then challenge the world record holders to try and beat them at their thing.
Mm.
And there were 3 challenges every week, and they would always play to the strengths of the world record holder. And I would just try and just have a go and see if I could win. The expectation being that I could not win. But some weeks I would snatch one of the challenges. And I think that's what kept it interesting for the viewer, because you didn't know when I might just sneak one. And so some weeks I would just sneak one challenge. I'd normally lose the last challenge because that was their specialist skill, but I might just sneak one of the earlier 2 challenges, and that was really exciting. So, for example, I went to the North Pole and I met a guy called Wim Hof, who
Oh yes, I
is
remember off the Iceman.
the Iceman, and he's got lots of world records there, but they're all the same thing. He can survive real cold, so he's got the longest distance traveled in cold, the longest distance swum in cold, the shortest distance swum in cold, the deepest distance swum in cold. All his world records involve this one amazing talent and skill. And so we had three challenges, Vim and I, and the first one was to see who could survive in a freezer at -15 or something in our pants. And, here's a surprise. I didn't win that one.
Right.
Then we had running across the North Pole in a sort of 5K run in our pants barefoot, which I did actually win. So I won the race. Vim wasn't that fast, and he was fast, but he wasn't as fast as I was getting around the course. However, we were barefoot, and then when I got over the line, I got most horrendous frostbite, and my feet were in a massive old mess, whereas his feet were fine. So that was the interesting thing of going, well, I got the faster time, but did I actually win? Because my body was giving up, like my feet were giving up. And then the third challenge was to swim in the Arctic water, and again,
In pants.
well, he was in his pants. Yes. By this stage, they'd had to take some emergency protective measures on my feet because they had gone really wrong. So it was all by this stage. Yeah, they're fine now. What's interesting about frostbite, and I don't know if you've had this, but is it? I didn't really know much about it, but it's when you're out in the snow and your fingers feel a bit numb and blah, 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 that's basically the beginning of frostbite. Except frostbite it just gets worse and worse and worse to a level we don't do in England. We never get to that point. So it gets to the point where not only can you not feel anything, your blood has just gone, I'm not going to bother going in those bits anymore. So that's sort of where they start to go a bit wrong. But if you're lucky and you catch it in time, and they did with my feet, which is very lucky, it comes back. But it might not come back for a week or 2 weeks or a month or 2 months. You might have lost feeling in those toes for that length of time while your body works itself out and gets its feeling back and all the rest of it. However, the really painful thing is when the feeling comes back in your toes, and it's like they're being horribly burnt. That's the only way I can describe it. And so for me, it happened about a month, 6 weeks later, when I was in the supermarket in East Anglia, and I had one of my tiny children with me who were very small at the time. And the lady, sort of at the checkout, I just beep, and then she'd gone, that'll be £7.36, please. And that's the moment at which all the feeling flooded back into my toes. And I thought my feet were on fire. And so, beep, and I gripped the desk, the checkout desk, and I let out the most like blood-curdling scream, because it was the most pain. I didn't want to make a fuss, but it was the most painful, horrible experience I've ever had. And this poor woman just looked at me and went, that's only £7.36, because she thought it was just shock and horror at the whole thing. So yes, I had this brilliant experience of going all around the world and doing these wonderful, wonderful world record holders and challenging them. And one of those was in on the Arabian Peninsula, and it was climbing up. You're right, it was climbing up one of the world's tallest buildings with the free climbing legend Alain Robert, and me being terrified of heights. And I'm from East Anglia. We just get nervous at literally 1 meter above sea level.
Absolutely.
But I really didn't like that. And luckily the Royal Marines were there to do the rope safety stuff. And but one of them very kindly remembered that I had been made an honorary Commodore, and was just like, you're not going to fail this challenge. And I was like, well, it's really high. It's a really high building. I don't know how to climb. And he went, yeah, but the Navy doesn't fail. And I went, yeah, at sea, it doesn't fail at sea, and we're in a desert here. And he went, no, same rules apply. So they were brilliant, and they managed to somehow teach me in a really short time frame the amazing kind of psychological tricks that the Marines teach their climbing team to get up these incredible, horrible heights. There were a few things that didn't make it into the final cut of that show, and I think one of the moments that didn't was when I was about 100 meters up in the air. All the minarets went off because it was prayer time in this Arabian country, and they all call to prayer, that wonderful call to prayer went off. And I apparently, unknown to me, was near a camera that was attached to the building. And I managed to somehow look at the camera and go, I mean, if anyone needs prayer right now, it's got to be me. And tragically, that never made it into the show. But it was a tremendous experience. That you get another amazing kind of getting to do this stuff is incredible. And some of it's very dangerous. I mean, that climb up the outside of the building. Well, I mean, I got horrendous frostbite in the North Pole. Then the climb up the building was, a tremendous thing, absolutely extraordinary. And I remember this tiny Scottish man was there, and I said to him, "Oh, hello," and he went, "Oh, hello," and I went, "And what do you do?" And he went, "Oh, I'm the head of health and safety for the entire BBC," and I went, "Oh, right, do you come to all the shoots?" And he went, "No, just this one," and I was like, "Okay, we've got the top guy here. This is not going well. This is bad."
But all these experiences, all these adventures, all these things you've done, what surprised you most about people?
That's a really good question. I think I take the view people are mainly positive.
Mhm.
And I think people are trying to do a good thing. It may be that their good thing unexpectedly is a bad thing for you, but they might be trying to do a good thing. And so if you try and work out very often what it is they're trying to achieve, it will normally come, hopefully, from a place of good. Even if you don't necessarily agree with their definition of good, I think people like to get a sense of happiness and a sense of achievement. And so whatever it is that gets them that sense of happiness, sense of achievement, you just need to try and work out what that is, and then work out how that impacts what you're trying to do, I suppose. So I guess that's what I've learned, probably.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure if that's remotely helpful, but I think that's where I am.
no, I think it's a great thing. I mean, it's something I've talked about to people a lot in the past, is that I don't believe I don't believe very many people get up in the morning with any thought that they want to make somebody else's day worse.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the first thing, is it?
No, I would hope not.
No.
There might be a few, but I think they're a
Yeah.
very, very small amount of
Yeah.
people.
But then also you've got to question why.
Yeah.
If there is a person that does that, why? Why is that their position? How is that, where's that come from? And I guess that then by finding that out, you might suddenly get to the root of that, which might be quite, helpful.
I mean, everyone's aiming to do good in what
I think that's what I hope.
of good
Yeah.
is.
I guess I've learned listening to people is quite a good thing. And also never underestimating people. People are brilliant sometimes, and they can achieve fantastic things. And I think those world record holders that I've mentioned, seeing the wonderful things that they've achieved, seeing the way they've achieved that, is a real eye opener on things. I think it's interesting.
Has the world turned out to be a kinder place?
Has it? That's a good question. I think there's a lot of kindness out there. I think that's probably true. I think it gets very difficult when you get to a level of people organization that is above, I don't know, whatever the unit is, where you're able to influence an outcome properly, I think. So whether that's bigger than a village, or bigger than a sports club, or bigger than a town, or bigger than a city, or bigger than a county, there comes a point where sometimes people maybe are having to do something to get an outcome that they don't necessarily think is the best outcome, but that this is just sort of either got to do, or it's going to lead to something that they hope is going to be better than the thing they've already got. And I think at that point, sometimes there's not a very good outcome.
Yeah, that's probably fair enough, and we're seeing chunks of that in the world
at
the moment. Okay, let's go back to some slightly more fun stuff. So, okay, you've gone bouncing down a black
What could be more fun than kindness? Who knows?
True, that's true. So you go bouncing down a ski run in a giant inflatable sandcastle.
Yeah.
You joined in with a Morris dance from.
So that again was William Shakespeare's comedian.
Yes.
His first one in chronologically, he fell out with Shakespeare. They got into a bit of a row, actually, it seems, about the role of a comedy part in Hamlet. And he was really going for a comedy part in Hamlet because he wanted to be in Hamlet. And Shakespeare was writing Hamlet and said, I don't think it's going to be a barrel of laughs.
No.
I think Shakespeare said it's going to depress A-level students for the next 400 years. I think he said that. And
this incredibly forward thinking.
This comedian didn't give in, and he just sort of went, look, I've got a comedy dog on wheels. I've really thought this through. And Shakespeare just didn't back down. And so he went, I'll show you what comedy is. And so he left Shakespeare's office on the South Bank and he Morris danced from London to Norwich in 9 days. And then he wrote a poem about it, a very famous poem called The 9 Days Wonder, which is where we get that phrase, the 9 Days Wonder, for something that's been famous like a flash in the pan. And I thought that's so intriguing. That's so brilliant because he's a big comedian in Shakespeare's plays. You know, he's the guy that first played Bottom in Midsummer Night's Dream. We think he played Falstaff. So these are very big Shakespeare comedy parts, and we still do those jokes now.
Mm.
Somewhere in the world right now, someone will be putting on a fat suit and going on and playing Falstaff. If not, there'll be somebody doing the same and playing Bottom, and with or without the fat suit. But ultimately, this is a really interesting comedian with a really interesting take on comedy. He says the true nature of comedy is Morris dancing from London to Norwich. Someone should test that. Someone should go out there and do this and see why it's funny. Why is it so funny? Why does this brilliant comedic mind from 1600 say this is funny? I really wanted to know that. And I was trying to get someone else to do it, and no one else would learn to Morris dance. So in the end, I went, all right, I'll go do it. So I went and learnt to Morris dance. I wasn't at Morris dance, so I took it on, I gave it a go, and I ended up Morris dancing all the way from London to Norwich in the 9 days, which was so much fun. It was so funny and it was so much fun, and I can totally get why he thought it was really funny.
Okay. So do you, I mean,
I think there's nothing funnier. And he did it in winter. He had snow on the ground.
oh,
I did it in summer, but it being an English summer, it absolutely weed it down with rain. And there is nothing funnier than a Morris dancer whose physical body is broken because you're doing a half marathon every day, if not a marathon every day, but you're doing it skipping, twizzling, jumping up and down, capering. So you're trying to seem merry, but on day 4 or 5, your body is completely shot to pieces. You can barely get out of bed. You're essentially limping. That's what you're doing. And yet you're still trying to do all the moves and still trying to look capery and fun. You've got the handkerchiefs and all the, fiddly faffing around with the fabric. And then it starts torrentially weighing it down with rain. And so you've got this unbelievable pain in every joint in your body, plus you've got torrential downpour of rain, and you're still trying to look happy. It's ridiculous. And he was absolutely right to say this is really funny, because it is really funny. Not for the person doing it, but it's really funny for everybody watching it, is what I would say.
Yeah, and I can see that completely. I mean, you mentioned ridiculousness there. Do you think that as adults we worry too much about looking foolish?
Oh yeah, I think we do. I think as humans we do. I think there are some kids that worry about it. I think when kids get to a certain age, you can see it. They really worry about it, and that's where it comes from. We should never be afraid to fail. Never be afraid to get something wrong. And I think that's a message to get across to everybody, because everything good comes out of failure.
Absolutely.
You've got nothing that we turn to in our lives came on the first go. Everything comes on multiple failures to get it right. Or try and get it right, or maybe just try something completely different. Suddenly something that you're trying for a specific purpose might turn out to be even more brilliant for something else. Velcro is a classic example.
Post-it notes.
Post-it notes is a classic example. I'm sure there's millions of other classic examples of stuff that came out of, super glue. That's another one.
Absolutely.
Another classic thing that they were trying to fix one issue and it suddenly literally fixed a whole ton of other issues. So I think there's a real lesson there in not being afraid to look foolish, not being afraid to fail, not being afraid to try stuff. These are all bound up in the same thing, and it's a really good thing to push as a message.
What's personally been your most valuable failure?
I think, there've been loads. Let's be honest. I failed in the bathtub the first time, and that got me to succeed in it the second time. Everybody said it wasn't possible, and the first time they were jolly well right. It really wasn't possible, and I nearly, I had to go to hospital after that. So it was quite tricky, and that was that was something that nearly didn't come good. So I think but it made me all the more determined to see if I could make it work the second time. Which, spoiler alert, but the book's great. But it was a success the second.
You just mentioned the book, so it's All at Sea.
All at Sea, one man, one bathtub, one bad idea. It's a cracker.
Well, a great strapline.
Yes, it is, and it's a good read in the bath.
It is a good read.
Yeah.
Just there. That's just there.
Ah, yes, there it is. My word. There it is.
Wonderful. It's still available now?
Yes, it is. It's amazing, isn't it? So I wrote it in 2009, I think. 8, 9, and it's still there. It's still in print. It's still selling. People are excited. People sort of discover it anew, which is really nice. And it's amazing to have a book that's still in print. What are we? 15 years, 17 years? Yeah, it's amazing. So it's exciting.
And film rights? Well,
They are around. Yes, they've gone to America, the film rights, and at the moment, and someone's trying to get that away in Hollywood as we talk.
didn't appear for Clint Eastwood.
Well, that's the great missed opportunity, isn't it? I'm not sure it's his type of film, but who knows?
Well, let's talk happiness. What makes you genuinely happy on an ordinary Tuesday?
On an ordinary Tuesday makes me happy. I like, I really like people. I still like people. I like the countryside. I think we're really lucky out here. It's brilliant. But I do love people. I love hanging out with people. I like laughing with people. I like listening to their stories. I like finding out how people's day went. I love my family. They always make me happy. So there's quite a lot of stuff that makes me happy, really. I like writing. Quite enjoy that. Reading.
I wonder, what are you writing anything at the moment?
I am, yes. I'm writing a PhD at the moment, which is taking ages because, spoiler alert, they're quite hard.
Yeah.
Like, it's that thing where you go, oh, I might do a PhD. Well, I didn't think like that, but there are people who go, oh, yeah, I'm doing, or I'm doing a PhD, or I've done a PhD, or I want to get a PhD. They're really hard. They are hard. It's a thing, and you can't bang them out in a year. This is a serious endeavor, and I am trying. I'm trying to get it done. I didn't ever think I would get to do a PhD. So again, that's unusual. I sort of started doing a master's course and I got fast tracked onto the PhD program, which was very unexpected and has been amazing. But it's a research PhD, so it's all on me. And it's part time as well because I'm doing all my other stuff at the same time. So there's quite a lot going on. But I am writing that, and I am loving writing it. And even now, however many years down the line we are with this PhD, I'm still enjoying writing it. I'm still enjoying writing the actual words about my subject matter, which is really nice.
And what's something you become more grateful for as you've got older?
Well, that's a really good question as well. I think I've been quite lucky so far, touching wood, but I've had so many injuries with all the crazy plans, but none of them to date have been like long-term ones. So, I've broken shoulders quite badly, or I've broken wrists, or I've, chipped this or done that, or, my hand had to get wired back together at one point. I mean, it's all kinds of injuries that have happened. But I think what I am grateful for is that none of them to date have been really horrible long-term ones. Because I think the older people, the older you get, you sort of look around and you kind of go, oh gosh, that poor person there is not having a good time. And I think that must be horrible to get out of bed every day and not be able to shake it off. And I think I'm very grateful for that. Got your health, you're a millionaire.
So they say.
That's what they say.
Have you got any more of these crazy schemes lined up that might
well, yes is the answer. So I'm constantly writing them down at the moment because at the moment I've got to get this flipping PhD finished, which I'm really excited about, but it does take time, and the crazy plans take time. They take a lot of time to put them together.
I'm sure.
They take a lot of time to go to progress them and get them forward, and to fail and to try again and to do all that stuff. It all takes time, and that's one thing that I think I could really do with a bit more time. That would be nice. If I sort of had the ability to work for longer hours or harder, that would be great. I'd like that.
So what's in the pipeline?
Yes, so at the moment I'm doing my theatre in King's Lynn in West Norfolk.
Yes.
It's the oldest working theatre in the country, and that was a really crazy plan to start with. I mean, we've got to go back to 10 years, and 10 years ago that theatre was going to shut, and I didn't want it to shut, and so it was an absolutely mad idea to try and keep it open. And I volunteered to keep it open. I kept it open myself as a volunteer, programming it with others and with friends, just to keep the thing going. Because I realised that the only thing that theatre had going for it was the oldest working theatre. And when it stopped being a working theatre, that had gone. And it's a beautiful theatre. It's really old. The first recorded performances on that stage are in 1445. I can tell you who was on stage and tell you who did the costumes, because the records are that good. I can tell you who bought the candles, for the performance, which is exciting. And I can tell you what the play was about. The theatre's even older than that. The first royal charter for the theatre is in 1406. So it's a very, very old theatre indeed. And I desperately did not want it to shut. But at the time, you've got to think 10 years ago, I was a guy with the back of an envelope, kind of just going, I've got this idea to keep this theatre open. This is my idea. This is what I think we can do to keep this theatre open. And it seemed like such a mad plan because you were going to need to raise millions of pounds to keep this thing going. And now, cut to 10 years later, and we've got millions of pounds and we're renovating it. We've taken the roof off. We're making it watertight. We're putting in all sorts of exciting stuff. We're doing the theatre. We're doing 14 creative studio spaces, restaurant, cafe, bar, 2 art galleries, 3 public courtyards. This is a really big site in Kings Lynn that has been, as you say, it was literally a crazy plan on the back of an envelope in my head 10 years ago. And now we're actually there. And I'm still part of it, still driving it forward, still coming up with mad ideas to go inside these wonderful spaces. And that's an incredible crazy plan, really. It's just the outcomes on this one are that we're getting to help change people's outlook. The children and young people program that goes with the theatre that I've again thought up, and again it was a crazy plan. Let's have a massive cultural program in West Norfolk in some areas that are quite challenged in terms of socioeconomics. Let's do that, and let's see how popular that is, and let's base it on Shakespeare, because that's what people say doesn't work in these areas. Well, it does work in these areas. We've now got 10,000 children and young people who are engaging in these outreach programs that we're running, which is absolutely fantastic. And what that tells me is that if you put Shakespeare across in an engaging and exciting way, then of course people are going to engage with it, because they've engaged with it for 400 years. These are really well thought through stories. They work. Let's get on with it. Let's just put it across well. When Shakespeare doesn't work is when people put it across in a really boring, yawning way. That doesn't work. But it's working in West Norfolk. And again, it's a crazy plan, because you're going, how can we change these things? How can we give people a cultural outlook? Let's do it this way. Normally, the conventional wisdom will be, well, that's not going to work. But it is working. And that's another crazy plan that's kind of coming off. So it's not just delivering this amazing theatre project, it's also delivering the whole outreach project that goes around that and actually makes a difference. So that's the current crazy plan, if you like to phrase it that way, that is going forward, and that I'm really focused on making sure we deliver well.
That's an amazing thing. So what's the next few years of that look like?
Well, we're opening the doors in Kings Lynn on the theatre in 2028. So we're already a quarter of the way through our renovation project, and we're still doing the activity project. So right now in Lynn, we've got our children and young people's art clubs, we've got our play in a day, we've got our shows that we're putting on in other venues across Kings Lynn. So for that example, last week we had a lovely show going on in what they now call the Minster, which is the big church in the middle of Kings Lynn, which we turned into a theatre for the day, and we got shows in and we got kids in to watch the shows, and we did that. And in November we'll be doing our Dragon Festival again, and we are sort of turning the whole town really and the region into a big art centre. So last year we did this, and the theatre had builders on site, so we couldn't use the theatre. So we put 8 different sites in Kings Lynn. We had activities going on all 8 of them, and then we have 4 different sites across the region doing activities as well, so 12 in all. And I think that's the plan again for this year. So it's about being creative, thinking outside the box, and making sure that we keep that really important work with the families and the children going. I think that's really key. So yeah, it is a big challenge, and it's not what I'm doing on my own. There's a huge team around me that's doing it, but it certainly started on the back of an envelope that I had, which is it's just incredible to see it go from that to where we are now. We're now employing people. I mean, it is staggering to have seen a journey from an idea on the back of an envelope to now employing. Well, I think they said the other day we'd gone over employing 150 builders. And that's just an example in the building side of it. Yeah. But that's 150 jobs. So it's a sort of it's a very different type of challenge for me, because normally, as you say, it'll be a challenge that's quite not necessarily quick, but can be. I mean, like the slalom run down with the sandcastle, that's a couple of minutes or however long. And the bathtub's a week or whatever it is. But this is a long term. Let's dig in and get this done.
But what I think they've all got in common is you can't do them alone.
Yeah.
And you rely a
Yeah.
lot on other people
Yeah.
throwing their weight behind it and
Yeah.
getting involved and helping. And I think this for me is one of
That's a really
the
good point. Yeah.
great things that I love to hear in these series is just
Mm.
how much you just go and ask people for help and how prepared a lot of people are to just say yes.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah, I mean, I when I got the bath on the shipping register, I remember the civil servant made a few demands of the bath. He said, you're going to need to have a sealed cabinet for the electrics because you've got to have electrics on a bath for emergency stuff at sea. Um, and he said, look, I'm prepared to look a little silly, but I'm not prepared to look downright foolish. And I thought that's really interesting. This is a very serious civil servant who's had a lot of time in the ministry, and he's going, I am going to get behind you. You've got to help me to get behind you. And I really liked that. And I thought there's a lesson there. It's a really nice phrase he's used, which is, meet me halfway, but I want to help you. And I really liked that. So yeah, you're quite right. And it's been brilliant the amount of people that have got behind these challenges over the years. Absolutely fantastic. But it also comes from a place. I mean, Taskmaster again is a really good example of this with Alex. And I mean, yeah, I'm sure we've talked about it before, but I I won the initial version of Taskmaster, which was a live show, which is how it got commissioned for television. And then, in fact, Alex had to add an extra round because I'd managed to basically outsmart Alex all year. So Alex and I are were back then very competitive, and we were always trying to outsmart each other in some way, shape, or form, to a level where we kind of try and sabotage each other's shows specifically for fun and in a joyful way. He would attempt to sabotage my shows, I'd attempt to sabotage his, and so on and so forth. For example, in one of my shows, there was a bet that I was trying to do about an aristocrat in the 1700s who bet that he could get a letter past a certain distance in an hour, and so he had it stitched into a cricket ball, hired the then England cricket team, and got them to throw it to each other in the distance that he needed to win to get this note that was stitched into the cricket ball. Now, in the original bet, he then unstitched the cricket ball and presented the letter. Alex was my person that I was betting with. Alex wrote the letter. He said, I'll take you on this bet, Tim, but only if I can write the letter. Absolutely fine, Alex. Alex wrote the letter. I had it sealed into a cricket ball, so I went to the test match cricket manufacturer of the balls. I asked him to do the bet for me. They said yes. They stitched Alex's note into the ball. I then got a cricket team together. I got it thrown around and caught and thrown and caught and thrown and caught. Alex then said, I'm going to give you a clue. And I said, oh, okay. He said, the note is coded and here's the note. So I want you to, this is what you're going to get as a note. And I thought, interesting. Now, why has he done that? Now, I know Alex Horne well enough to know that that means there's something rum afoot. So I then started to try and crack the code that he had written the note in, and it took me quite a while. And I then checked it with Mark Watson, who's another keen observer of Horne, let's say.
Absolutely.
And Watson thought I was onto something because he thought, this sounds a bit Alex. It sounds like there's something here. And I cracked the note, luckily, before I opened the cricket ball. And the note said, I've only taken this bet on. If Tim opens the cricket ball, he forfeits the bet. And so Alex had sealed a note into the cricket ball in code, which, had I opened the cricket ball to retrieve the note, would have meant that I forfeited the bet. So that's the kind of, what's the word? Sneaky behaviour that Alex and I got involved in attempting to outdo each other. And so I attempted to outdo Alex with the original Taskmaster, and was initially not expected to win. So much so that backstage I'd actually taken a bet with Alex that I would place in the top three. Now, Alex knew the outcome, and so he took the bet thinking, Tim is way not in the top three for finishing in Taskmaster, because it used to have more contestants in the original iteration of the show. So Alex had ramped up the odds, and he was really confident we'd finish in the top three. I was really confident I had absolutely been sneaky in all the bets that he'd come up with, all the challenges, he'd come up with all year. So in the end, I accumulated points on the night that meant that I won the entire thing. So Alex was then going, you can't win. So he had to add an extra round between me and Mike Wozenak to try and make sure I didn't win, essentially, and then Mike won this hastily added nod off round. But the big winner of that night, of course, was me, because I had placed in the top three. And Alex, in fairness to Alex, absolutely paid up on the side bet, which was very kind. There we go.
Fantastic.
But just the point of the story was, that just like me asking people to help with stuff and people helping out, Taskmaster is the same. Now it's kind of public service announcement for that, really, in that he's got that wonderful schools program for Taskmaster, which is absolutely fabulous. He's got a wonderful board game with Taskmaster. There's even a London experience you can go. There's an advent calendar you can do. There's all sorts of wonderful things that are coming out of it, which is really fun and exciting, and plays to this positive thing and plays to people saying yes and getting involved and joining in, which is great.
Certainly is. I mean, if you couldn't do another big adventure, you just couldn't do them, what would still make life interesting for you?
Well, I think the PhD is pretty interesting. I like it.
I think so.
So I'd be pretty happy with that. I mean, I definitely would miss the adventures. That would be a shame. I think there's a few more to come.
Excellent. I look forward to those. All right, I'll just finish up with some good news stuff about why everything is fine. So what's one piece of good news that you think people don't hear often enough?
You're brilliant. Whoever you are listening to this, you're a brilliant person. I don't think they hear that. I don't think people think about that.
Yeah.
They will have a brilliant thought. They will have a brilliant idea. They have done something brilliant. And I don't think people realise that. So I think that's something they don't hear enough.
What's something about humanity that gives you hope?
Curiosity. Although that is a bit of a double-edged sword, perhaps at the moment I'm hearing AI might be a little bit too much curiosity, but we'll have to see. So I'm not sure. But yes, I definitely do like curiosity, and I think it's camaraderie, love, however you want to define that, togetherness. There's a lot of good stuff there, and that should give people hope. There's often more. Well, I think there's history, and again, as we've said, I do like looking at that every now and again. But if it teaches us nothing else in some ways, it does teach us that at the point you think it's really going to go very sideways, humanity somehow rights itself. Somehow there's a course of action that's actually okay that comes out of it.
Yeah,
so far.
Well, yes. We've said on the show a few times over the course of human history is generally upward. It's not a smooth line by any stretch.
No, it's definitely not. No.
But generally things get better. What's one misconception you think people have about the world?
It's round. No, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think we know enough about the sea.
No, it's amazing how
I think there's a lot of sea that we don't know a lot about.
All this part of our world, and we just have no idea what's in it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot down there that we're just not quite sure about.
Yeah,
and I think some of it's quite. Every time I watch a thing about the sea, there's a new animal in there that I just go, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And I bet there's more of them down there.
Last week, and I mean, this is not a new thing apparently, a 10th species of walking shark was identified.
Right. Yes, I read that.
Shark.
Yeah, and that's a serious kind of missing link, kind of close to missing link thing, isn't it? It's wonderful. Yeah, it's amazing stuff. Yeah, I was very excited about that.
I was excited. I was slightly terrified until I understood what it was.
No, it's great.
So I was marching up onto the beach.
I was very excited about the marching shark. I thought he was rather cool.
Yeah.
And that's the 10th one as well. I didn't even know about the other 9.
No.
So that was amazing. I was like, what?
I thought it was a new thing.
What do you mean there's 10 of them?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
This passed me by.
Yeah.
What's made you smile this week?
This week, quite a lot to smile about this week. I mean, it's the sun's out, the sky's pretty blue. You know, there's a variety of places you can go swimming. It's all. I don't want to sound like life's perfect because it's not, but there's a lot to be happy about, and also simple things. You can all just go and stick. Well, if you live anywhere near a river that's not polluted or dangerous, you can go and stick your feet in that. Or if you're near the sea, you can always go and stick your feet in that. So that's a nice thing to do.
Yes.
And I've done that this week, which has made me smile. I have seen my family, which has made me smile. I've done some nice things with my writing, which has made me smile. So there's been quite a lot of smiling this week, I'd say.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's a good week. Have you ever abandoned an adventure because it just wasn't fun anymore?
No, I think probably. I don't think I have. I mean, the bathtub many of my adventures have had periods of intense not fun. However, I think if you've pushed through one of them that hasn't been fun and you've then realised the fun at the end of it, that makes it more likely that you'll push through the next one that isn't fun, because there will be fun at the end of it maybe. So the paper boat, for example, had some elements of definite not funness. I remember particularly my nipples got incredibly badly chafed in the paper boat, and I just had to keep. I mean, it's a very first world problem, but it was agonising. And also I managed to somehow get some sort of weird infection in my neck as I was doing the paper boat. I can't remember what it was, some microbey thing. But anyway, so there were a couple of like physical with the paper boat, and yet I thought I'm just going to push through this. And the ending of the paper boat, that wonderful moment at Tower Bridge, where everybody came out on the riverbank and loads of people came to say well done, and we raised a ton of money. And had I not pushed through, I wouldn't have got the money. I wouldn't have raised it. That was glorious, and it made me go. When I did the bath, I then expected there to be some not fun bits, but I then expected there to be some fun bits at the end. So I guess it's conditioned me to go, there will just be some bits of this that won't be that much fun. You know, I was running across a desert in a suit of armor. It was really hot.
Of course you were.
Yeah, it was really hot. And at the end of the second day, I'd managed to burn my neck on the armor. So there was, intrinsic blistering going on of the lack of skin where the burning had happened. And I remember the nice man who was trying to help me out of the armor, and he was sort of trying to get it off, and he was going, it's just too hot for me to touch. And I was inside the armor with my neck kind of burning, and I just sort of went, "You mean you're hot? It's quite hot in here." And so that wasn't fun. But again, I knew if I made it across, in the happiness would be there, and it has been. That wonderful sort of sense of going, yeah, I've done that. It's really nice. So there've been many moments where I've gone, this might be the point at which I do break and I don't pull this over the line. But let's hope not.
Yeah, I think it's true, isn't it? With a lot of tasks, they can start fun, they can end fun. There will always be bits when they stop being fun.
Yeah. Well, making a cup of tea, filling the kettle's fun and drinking the tea's fun. But the bit in the middle where it's just boiling, I mean, that's less fun.
Well, it depends what you do with it.
Okay. Yes. You could put some sort of ping pong ball in there and that might bubble away. That'd be quite fun to watch.
So I'm sure you can do something.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Maybe boil an egg.
Maybe.
Yeah, that might work.
There you go.
We've solved that.
Cracked that little problem. What do you think that children understand about adventure that adults then forget?
Well, I think children have, and I think I probably am in this category as well. I think we, children and I, have less of a thing telling us that something won't work. So I think maybe adults have seen a thing go wrong before and remember that and go, well, that's not going to work because of this. Or if you study engineering or you have any kind of appreciation of building something, or you go, well, that's just not going to work. The laws of physics don't work that way. Whereas I think me and children are much more likely to go, well, maybe they don't, but I'll give it a go. And I think that's something that's really important. I think almost adults are perhaps trapped by their own experience and don't just go, how about we just try this? Let's just try it. Let's give it a go. And I think that's really compelling. And I think that's really important. Always ask a kid. You'll get a brilliant answer. And it's this fear of failing, isn't it? Or not believing that you can do it or get away with it. But it's even more than
that. Just the joy of doing it.
I think more than that, though, kids, and again, I put myself in this category, perhaps not quite to this degree, but can you remember when you were a kid and you thought you might be a superhero? I mean, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You might be the one. You as a kid, someone's got to be the superhero. So it might be me. Let's give it a go. And I think that's brilliant. That mindset is brilliant. And nobody should ever lose that. It's great.
There's that moment, and I don't know when it happened for me, but you suddenly realise all of your favourite sports people are younger than you. And now I suddenly have this thing, actually, that even the managers and coaches are younger than me.
Yeah.
And now I've realised I will never play for England.
It's
probably never going to happen now.
I'll never say never, Jim.
I think that's probably enough for this week. So, Tim, thank you so much for a huge entertaining conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening. Theatre has a website. It's stgeorgesguildhall.com. People are very welcome to keep up on that adventure. The book is lovely. Do buy the book.
Do buy the book.
And of course, the Gambler podcast. If you're not listening to this podcast, then go and get the Gambler.
Yes.
Which is kind of
when you finish this, go straight on to the Gambler.
Yeah.
And thoroughly enjoy that. And as I said, if you've enjoyed this episode, please do all those usual podcasty things. Follow, subscribe, leave us a review, tell friends, tell your family. Tell the one person who's convinced everything in the world is terrible. We specialise in proving them wrong and still being nice about it. If you've got a good news story you'd like us to cover, you've spotted something wonderfully ridiculous that deserves a place on the show, please get in touch. We love hearing from you. Hopefully Gemma and Stu will both be back next week, assuming they haven't had their appearances suspended under Article 27 by FIFA. But until then, look after yourselves, look after each other, and remember, everything's fine. Probably.